name's Abeja.
Shut up!
My name's Abeja. Outside of Amguard, I am a master's level therapist. I'm not your therapist, so take what fits and leave what doesn't. But essentially here today, I'm going to give you guys some real-world examples of mental wellness strategies that you guys can use, especially in tournament fighting or ANS competitions. So, why should you care? Obviously, Amguard is a very physical sport, but there's also like a mental aspect that goes into it. When you're performing for others or even for yourself, there's a lot of added pressure that you can put on yourself that can kind of limit the kind of growth that you want to do, right? Anxiety, especially before tournaments or competition, can really take off like more time, energy than your project probably needs. And essentially, these are some examples of, I guess, mental strategies like benefits. So that can be improving your focus and clarity when you're fighting or when you're working on, garb projects, leatherworking, chainmail. It requires an extensive amount of detail. When you're anxious, you're not paying attention to the kind of detail that your craft might require. And obviously we all know that stress and anxiety does impact your performance. You tense up, you start guessing yourself, you hesitate, you fumble, you drop your sword. And these kind of strategies are meant so that you can stay calm under pressure. Also, to deal with setbacks, right? So when you start losing or when you make a dumb mistake or in your words, you need a kind of mental resilience to be able to bounce back, just kind of like a rubber band. It really sucks when you're not doing well, or it really sucks when you feel like you did a good job, but maybe your technique wasn't there, or the level of craftsmanship just kind of superseded the amount of skill that you currently have. So having that kind of resilience helps you get back to that good mental place that you should be, especially when you're engaging in this kind of game. Also motivation. A lot of people get really frustrated when they start, leveling and they're improving and then they get stuck. And a lot of that times it's not a physical stuck, it's not a skill set issue. It's a mental block that you're going through where you feel like you're not good enough, you'll never get to that place, and that's called a fixed mindset, which doesn't help anybody. Does anybody have any questions? Cool. Okay. Really important. Mental strategy is just as important as a physical strategy. And I know you guys have probably heard this term, tourney foo. What is tourney foo in clinical terms? A lot of what it is negative spiraling, and that's essentially when one bad thing happens and it triggers very deep emotional response from you that ends up affecting your thoughts about yourself or about your performance, and it affects your emotions. So that's when you start feeling guilty, you start getting angry, you start getting stuck in your head, essentially. And it affects your behaviors, it affects your performance in tournaments, and it affects your ability to engage in the game the way that you want. The term tourney foo is essentially just the mentality, it's patterns of thinking that happens when you get caught in this negative spiral. And so a good example for this is like you make an early mistake or you lose points when you're doing an ANS competition. This can lead to frustration about yourself because you feel like you know better, so you should do better. But all that extra pressure, what it does is it leads to even more mistakes later down in the line and poor performance. Because you get stuck in that spiral of, I know this mistake, I'm going to make this mistake again, and then you inevitably do. And so that's how it reinforces the cycle, and that's why you get stuck in a spiral. And it continues on and on. And just like thought patterns, behaviors, they need to be changed in order to affect all different aspects of this. Oh. Right, so I mentioned earlier that there is this fixed mindset. What is the importance of mindset? We have two different types of mindset. It's the growth and the fixed. I talked a little bit about fixed, but it's essentially believing that your skills are inherent. You will never get better, or I suck at this inherently. It is something part of you. It's something you kind of adopt as your identity, almost. And the growth mindset, which is, exact opposite, is believing that you can develop these skills, that there is a process, there is work that needs to be done for you to get to that place that you want to be at. And that can sound like, oh, I'm really upset with my ANS score, but you know what? I understood what the judges said. I think that with this technique, next go around, I can do it better. Let me find different ways that I can make it better or make it more polished. In terms of tournaments, that can be like, I didn't place in this tournament, but you know what? I'm going to go out of my way and I'm going to find somebody that did something really cool and I want to learn it. And I don't care if I mess up because that's the point. You got to mess up a few times to be able to get it right. Growth mindset is essentially thinking that losses or setbacks are a normal part of development. Progress is not linear. So you're going to fumble, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to drop your sword, or you're going to nick yourself or mess up your paracord sash. Like, things are going to happen. Learning from these mistakes and understanding that that's not an inherent part of your progress, of your growth, it is just a setback. It is just a mistake. And you can always do better next time. So these kind of things kind of remove these mental blocks, these mental obstacles that you experience. Everybody understand the difference? Right. So these are some of the mental management strategies. And don't worry, I will drop it in the Neverwinter chat so that you guys have access to this. But these are essentially the skills that I'm going to be teaching you guys. There are 2 body focused and there's 2 brain and mind focused. Box breathing and progressive muscle relaxation are the body focused ones, and cognitive restructuring, for the work in SMART goals, is the brain focused one. So try them all out. They might not always work the first time you do it, but you have to build the habit, you have to build the pattern to be able to break it. Okay. So going on into box breathing. Stress is an emotional response, right? It's caused by activating the fight and flight. But when you activate this fight and flight, it can be great short term. When you're in it constantly, it causes problems. It causes the tension. It causes the mental block that you go through. The thoughts of like, oh, I know that they're going to do this. I know I'm going to go up against this person and they're better than me, and you get stuck in the spiral. This is essentially to stop your fight or flight response. It's essentially made you to come back into your body and get control over your breathing. A lot of the times, I'm easily distracted. A lot of the times when I'm fighting, I hold my breath. I'm stressed. The last thing I want to do is breathe and give up an ounce, give up an inch. But what that does essentially is that I'm out of breath. I lack the stamina. I need to replenish my body so that it can do the thing that it needs to do. When your body's in that fight or flight, you're not thinking rationally. You're thinking on instinct. And that can be great, but always in excess, it never really works out the way that you expect. So this breathing is essentially just like a box has the same sides. It's 4 in, hold 4, out 4, in 4. And what this is supposed to do is to shut that out, get you into a rational headspace, and keep your body from essentially locking up, freezing. Cool? Progressive muscle relaxation is also a body-focused thing that you can do in line when you're working. It's a technique essentially that brings awareness to the tension that you're building in your body. A lot of people, without even realizing, when you stress, you start clenching your teeth and your jaw gets heavy, or your chest gets heavy, or your back starts hurting, your arms are super tense. And I mean, I speak mainly as fighting, but also in ANS. When you're stressed and you're hunched over and you're this close to your project, you can't zoom out and see the big picture. You don't see all of the possibilities or avenues that you can take in artistic expression. So what this is, and this is multiple things that you can do, right? You can start by bringing awareness to the tension in your hands, intentionally tense them, and then slowly release them. What this does is it sends a signal back to your brain, is essentially like, hey, we're releasing, release all the other muscles. And you can go in a circle, right? You can start with your hands, and then you can do your wrist, and then you can do your forearm, and then it's your bicep, and you do the whole circle. And then you can do it back if you want. But essentially what it does is it unlocks your muscles so that you're not this tense. And I mean, you can't fight like this. You can't fight when you're locked up. And you can't do real work, or you can't express yourself the way that you want to in your artistic projects when you're this close to the problem. Alright, so we're getting into the work. The work is essentially a series of questions that you can ask yourself when you get stuck in that negative spiral. When you start thinking, oh, I suck. Oh, I can never be a serpent knight. I can never fight in tournaments. I can never compare to so-and-so. I will never get to that point. And this comes from the belief that your thoughts affect your feelings, affect your behaviors, and that all goes in together, right? If you're thinking bad thoughts about yourself, it's going to affect your feelings about yourself. It's going to lower your confidence. It's going to make you hesitate, and it's going to affect your behaviors, the way you perform. So these series of questions are things that you can ask yourself. Like, if I tell myself, "Oh, I suck, man. I'm never gonna be as good as, I don't know, Chop." Is that true? Okay. Well, maybe I can't be Chop, but I can be Abeja, right? I don't need to perform as just like so and so, right? Or let's say I do believe oh yeah, I'll never be Chop, which is true. I'll never be Chop. Can I absolutely know that that's true? Well, yeah, I guess. Can I really get to that skill level? Right? You start thinking, it's like, do I really want to be them, or do I want to beat them? Do I want to be better? Do you want to settle for the bar that you've given yourself, or do you want to overshoot? How do you react when you believe that thought? I don't know about any of you guys, but I don't feel good when I start doubting myself. When I start thinking oh no, I can never do this project. I can never take on this responsibility. I can't be Medprat. I can't be Chancellor. It doesn't feel good. You get stuck in that kind of bad feelings, and that's going to make you hesitate. That's going to mean when these opportunities come for you that people want to give you, you have your horse blinds on and you can't even notice that the door is open. The door's wide open. And my favorite part of this question is, who would you be without that thought? If I didn't think these negative thoughts, if I didn't believe them as inherently true, I'd be happy. I'd be the person I want to be. I would be having fun. I would be engaging in the game the way that I want to. I wouldn't be stuck in my head thinking that I have to be somebody else that I'm not. So I recommend, just kind of mentally checking yourself when you start having these thoughts of, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be this person, or I'll never get to this point. Because that's getting stuck in a fixed mindset. That's not being a growth mindset. That's not inherently to you. Going on to SMART goals. I don't know if any of you guys have seen SMART goals in school or things like that, but are essentially things that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, or trackable. And so when you start making goals for yourself, or if you already have goals for yourself, it's a great opportunity for you to check in with yourself and make sure that these are things that align with the things that you are already setting out for. Things that bring you happiness, things that bring you joy, and that are actually, you're able to put it into practice. Because a lot of the times we set goals for ourselves and we don't make the steps to get to that goal. So it sounds really big and really scary. For example, this is a short-term example that you can do. I want to do leather crafting. That's a really broad, goal. What specifically do I want to do with leather crafting? I want to learn how to do basic leather crafting, right? I don't want to shoot for the moon and, fall and then get stuck in that negative spiral. I want to start with something small. So let me learn the basics. Let me learn how to cut, how to stitch, what kind of leather I can be using, and the finishing, which is important, the basics. measurable? What's a realistic time span for me to be able to do this? Okay, I know that in this coming break, I'm gonna have a lot of free time. I wanna be able to finish it by the end of the month, right? Set a goal for yourself, set a deadline for yourself so that you can check in with yourself, which is really important. The most important part of setting, I think, a time for yourself is not to use it to beat yourself up, right? Don't use it as an excuse to be like, oh, well, I didn't get it done by this time. I'm a failure. I'm never going to be able to do this because I lack the work ethic. No, real life happens. We unfortunately can't be doing AMGAR 24/7. So obviously give yourself some grace. And if you're like, oh, I wasn't able to finish it, push it back a week. Push through and finish the project and see what you could have done better. Achievable. Another thing, getting specific. Like, I'll dedicate 2 hours every single day to doing this leather craft. Right? Nothing crazy. If you can dedicate more time, great. But set aside those 2 blocks of hours so that you have dedicated time to your craft. How is this relevant? Well, it aligns with my interests. I like doing hands-on crafts. I like sewing. This kind of combines this artistic thing that I'm interested in. And it's pushing myself out of my boundaries, out of my comfort zone. I already know that I can sew. Let me try something new. Let me push myself. Let me give myself the opportunity to mess up. And by time bound, by the end of the month, you will have finished your first craft, right? And this is something you can even use for long-term goals. And this is my last slide, but essentially when you're thinking about a long-term goal, like following a path, following a knighthood path, disclaimer that this is not one size fits all. This is really dependent on the work that you do early on. So when you're working on things like that, sorry, that's distracting me. The progression and the time frame in which you do things is super important. So don't burn yourself out from the get-go and you're going to be stuck there. You're going to get frustrated and we're going back into the spiral. Cool? So how can you get specific about something like this? This is like a 10-year, 15-year thing. How can you dedicate this much time and mental energy into this? So be specific. I want to earn my title by actively contributing in these ways, right? I want to be cradding. I want to be autocrating. I want to provide something in service to Asgard, into my kingdom. I want to take leadership roles. I want to be engaged in this kingdom hands-on. How can you measure that? Right? So we do have the orders up, and that's something that you can reference. And I put some examples up there that you can start that gets progressively harder and harder. So you can start off with doing game setup at your local park, picking up trash, volunteering when they ask for help, or even when they don't ask for help. Just letting them know that you are available and you are willing will go a long way. No one will know that you want to do something unless you ask for it. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, or whatever the phrase is. Yeah, totally. It's okay. Y'all understood what I meant.
You got it. No, you got it exactly right.
And that's because I have ESOL.
Yep.
Yeah. And then what's the next step after that? You start small. What's the next step? Well, I can provide a service to the park for the next 6 months. Maybe that can be cooking for feasts, volunteering to provide feasts for Midreign or Endrain. That could be starting a household that provides loaner gear, or providing new equipment to newer members, or helping do a workshop on sewing. There's so many different aspects of this game that you can contribute to, that you can use your own individual skills to the betterment of Asgard, which is kind of cool. And then you can start thinking about things at a kingdom level. Let's say you're really interested in working in the kitchen, helping in the kitchen. At your first Asgard event, you can shadow people. Instead of diving head in and taking on more responsibility than you know what to expect, shadow someone, get that hands-on experience, have somebody kind of hold your hand through this process and see what happens behind the scenes. And you could do this a few times. It could be a bunch of different like positions. It doesn't have to be just kitchen. Try it out, see what you like. And so in the next time that you go into a Kingdom event, maybe you can even lead a craft position. Maybe that can be like, oh, I want to be gate craft next defrost, right? And you see that slow progression of like responsibility, more progression of your involvement in the game. And because this is such a long-term skill, you're going to have to continue that momentum, right? You have to be there. You have to be willing to take on responsibilities at the drop of a hat. If somebody, doesn't show, you have to be able and willing to step into that position, even when you weren't, I guess, necessarily expecting it or hoping. And how can this be achievable? Consistency is key. You have to be consistently volunteering for something like this. You need to be attending Kingdom events and seeking opportunities to learn different positions or taking on different leadership roles. How is this relevant? And that's personal to you. Why do you want to be? Find your why. Why do you want rose rather than, I don't know, serpent? Like, what is this about this belt that really speaks to you, that really draws your attention? And kind of remind yourself every time that you kind of take these responsibilities, because they're not easy. They do require a lot of mental effort from you, and they take a lot of time out of your day from enjoying the event. So remember your why. And time bound. Remember that this is not, a sprint. There is no fast track way of getting something like this. You have to show the consistency. You have to show the dedication. You need to not only prove to others, but prove to yourself that this is something that you really want. Because you won't always be recognized for the things that you do, and that's okay. You're not doing it for, let's say, the belt. You're doing it because you want Amtgard to be a better place. You want Amtgard to be a safer place. You want it to be more accessible or more, just available for people to get into. And just kind of remembering that every year you should be checking in with yourself. Like, how do you know that you're moving towards this goal? How do you know? How do you know that what you're doing and what you're volunteering for is aligning with your goals? Have you met your quota for the year? Check in with yourself and restructure any plans if there's been a setback. Because real life happens. I mean, just like be kind to yourself. Again, don't use this as an opportunity every year when you're checking in to beat yourself up for not being there, because you're not there yet. And that's the most important part, is that it's a long-term goal. You're making these steps to be able to achieve this big, thing you've set out for yourself. That is the last thing of my slide. But remember that a strong mindset is a competitive advantage. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than willing to, Books? I can make a book list, but they're all clinical books. I mean, I can provide them. I can give you other examples. Okay, yeah. We're thinking about a newbie fighter coming in fresh off the field. Their goal is I want to fight in a tournament, right? Big goal. How do you even start with that? Well, for one, you need to know first how to swing stick, right? Well, first you need to sign your waivers. Sign your waivers, guys.
Right.
Sign your waivers. And this is a little bit where leadership steps in, right? You need to have a mentor. You need to have somebody teach you these skills. And that's learning how to hold your weapon, what kind of gear we use, protective gear, which is very important, and you should be wearing protective gear. Learning hit locations, so where is it okay to hit people and where it's not okay to hit people, right? And start practicing slow. Building that fighting computer, essentially, until you feel confident enough to essentially go out into a park, right? Regular park practice. Set a goal for yourself. Be like, I'm going to practice every day, 30 minutes. I'm going to hit a wall, 4 squares, and I'm going to practice this one shot. At the end of the week, come Sunday, you check in with your park champion or your guild master of reeds, and you're like, hey, I want to practice this. This is what I've been practicing. Can you let me know how this is? Am I being safe? And you keep on doing it. You keep on rechecking with yourself, and then you build that skill. When you step out into a field, a lot of things are happening at once. Whether that's a ditch line or whether that's a battle game, militia, class, doesn't matter. A lot of things are happening at once. So make sure you have that mentor next to you. Make sure that you're assessing whether or not you're hitting to hurt, or if you're hitting to try and practice what you've been practicing at home or by yourself. And always, 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 safety is so important. Things are going to happen. This is a game. People are going to get hit. When things are unsafe, you accidentally hit someone in the head, step back. There's no harm in stepping back and checking in. The last thing we want is for people to get concussed and be out of the game. And yeah, build that slow progression. Once you've gotten that one shot down, hey, I'm gonna learn this other shot. I'm gonna learn footwork. It's making these small goals to be able to get to this big goal of fighting in a tournament.
Sorry to interrupt us. Speaking of safety, I was just informed that by the cabins on all sides, there are a lot of critters running around, so please, just stay away from them. When you guys are walking, please have your lights on the phones. Please make sure you stay on the walking backs, all right? Thank you guys so much. I apologize.
So it can be hard to notice when you're even spiraling in a negative way. How can we help our friends get out of that negative spiral if we notice that they are spiraling? Or vice versa, they notice that we're spiraling.
Yeah.
How can we help our friends?
Yeah. A lot of what I do is provide that verbal support, provide that physical support. That can look like me dancing in line and being like, we need to shake off this tension, we need to move through this feeling. That can be providing words of encouragement. That can even look like, for people who like prefer more like body focused things, that can like giving someone a hug can do a lot for releasing that kind of dopamine, releasing that tension in your body and getting them back into their body and out of their head. But yeah, be present with the person next to you. Hear them out. We've all been there. We've all been in that place. We've all been in that position where we are stuck in our heads so bad that we can't look past our problem. We're walking around like this. And that doesn't make the game fun. You know, it's not fun to fight somebody that's so in their head that, you know, like, you're not present with me. We're not having this conversation on the field. We're not having this kind of back and forth that, you know, I personally enjoy. So yeah, make sure that you check in with your friends. And that's more than just a, hey, how are you doing? It's a, hey, I saw you did something really cool out there. Keep it up. Or hey, I saw this new thing you're doing. It didn't land this time, but this is what you can do next time. Put your hip into it, put your wrist into it. Providing that verbal feedback and that verbal support really does go a long way. Yeah. A lot of that is what goes down into mindset, right? When you're stuck in a fixed mindset, any critique or criticism or advice that people give you comes as a personal attack to you because you see that failure in quotations, as personal to you. You need to separate the mistake from you. It is not an inherent trait. It is not part of you. Everyone makes mistakes and everyone has those days. But yeah, failure and setbacks are not inherent to you. That does not make you a failure. It does not make you a loser. It just means that you have room to grow. There are things that you can work on. And isn't that great that you can constantly be learning new things and doing new things? I also saw someone else's hand. Karen, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Great minds or something. Okay. When it comes to positive self-talk, a lot of it is faking it until you make it, right? So when you're stuck in that pattern of thinking that you're the worst, you'll never get better, you're never going to do better. Of course, when you remind yourself like that you have the ability to progress, you have the ability to get better, it's going to feel a little silly. It's like wearing shoes that don't really fit. You just got to break them in. You have to break the thought pattern. The more you remind yourself that this is a game you enjoy, this is the way that you want to engage in the game, that there's ways that you can improve, and there's people here that can support you with that, should hopefully limit that kind of forced feeling that you experience when you're trying to pull yourself up and like it just kind of feels clunky. No, I completely agree.
I think a good affirmation for fighting is I am a skilled and adept fighter.
Yeah.
Then you get in your head, and if you just repeat that to yourself, you'll feel better.
Yeah. Find something that sticks out to you, right? That can be, hey, I know that I'm not the greatest bullfighter, but I kill X sort of board. Find your strengths. Find the things that you're passionate about, the things that you're striving towards, and remind yourself where you're at, essentially. Or remind yourself that with the experience and the time that you've got in this game, you're skilled. You've got some semblance or some level of skill. Don't diminish that, and don't make yourself smaller just so that you can have an easier time beating yourself up.